What is this, December? Welcome to the December 6th meeting of the Infrastructure Task Force. Can we take the roll, please?
Mr. Angeli?
Here.
Mr. Braxton? Mr. LeBrie?
Here.
Mr. Ladd? Mr. Marshall?
Walking in right now?
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall? Ms. Scott? Mr. Ellington?
Here.
Mr. Walters?
Here.
Mr. Delmer?
Here.
And Chairman Mara.
Here,
You have the floor.
thank you very much. Everybody has had an opportunity to look at the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Approval of the previous minutes of October 4. They were submitted to everyone. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at them? And does anybody have any comments on the October 4 minutes? Excuse me, I'm sorry, October 4. How about November 1? We also saw those. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of October 4 and November 1, please?
So moved.
That was Peter, and seconded by Roosevelt. Okay, number 1, general discussion and comments by committee members, but I would like to give deference to the city clerk, who's here to talk a little bit about sunshine law and whatever you want to talk about. Jeff, you're always welcome. We love you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff,
So
you're on.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Before you start, I just want to introduce Tracy Bancott. She's gonna be the new liaison for the ITF meeting.
Oh, hello, Tracy.
So, Simi is helping her with the whole training process here, so she'll be taking over Tracy.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Okay, good to know.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I'll take the opportunity to introduce Lynette McIntosh from the clerk's office. Lynette handles advisory board. She's our advisory board coordinator, so if you ever need anything, any questions about advisory boards, you can always count on Lynette. You also obviously have a liaison that you can go to first, but Lynette's there for you, as am I. I originally wanted to get on the agenda, I guess, to talk about minutes, and I think just to have a discussion, and then it says sunshine law, but what I'll do after we talk about minutes, if you have any questions about sunshine. Before I leave the subject of sunshine, you have a really good chair who knows sunshine inside and out, and you're fortunate to have a great chair. Also, almost all the members I know, I've known for a long time, and I know you all know about sunshine, so if you have any specific questions, you can ask. As far as minutes go, I spoke to Prototype, who does the minutes. They're our vendor, and also to your liaison. And I guess I just was here to answer any questions you have about minutes, but I understand that you're perhaps talking about minutes and what to put in and what shouldn't be there. Is that correct? So I noticed, I used to watch the ITF committee meetings in my office during the day. I would watch, and I know last time before this new group of members on the board, I know this committee talked about minutes a lot before as well. So I was kind of coming here to help so that you don't have to spend a lot of time on minutes. The way we do minutes here at the city, it's really an art. I would say if you looked at doing minutes as a science, you could say verbatim minutes are a science. You have everything that's said is written down. That would be verbatim, and that would be more of a science of minutes. If you just did action minutes, which would be only your motions and only how you made your motion and you voted on the motion, that would be action minutes. So those are both sides of the spectrum. And what we do here at the city is the most difficult way to do minutes. And it really involves a lot of art. So whoever does the minutes, and I do them for commission meetings, and it's very difficult to try to capture what is said or summarize what is said. And we always wrestle with what to put in and what to leave in and what to leave out. Isn't there a song that says that? Anyway, so I just wanted to come and mention that, if you're struggling with what should be in the minutes, I would always go back and rely on Prototype. They are a very good vendor. They've been doing this a long time. The owner, Lisa, I've known for 20 years, and I think they're gonna bring you a quality set of minutes. They're also gonna try to capture what is really important to be summarized. Now, sometimes they may not know the subject matter detail. That even happens. I've been here over 20 years, and sometimes you may be talking about something I really am not an expert on. What we try to do then is we try to really generalize, or we could call staff. But I guess the point of everything I'm saying here is that these minutes or these meetings are being recorded, and if Prototype really summarizes what has been said and they capture what the essence of the subject matter that you're voting on or you're talking about, I think it is a good idea, if you can, to leave it at that. If there are technical things that are wrong, then you could add them. But they're doing something that is really an art. There's no right or wrong. They're just trying to summarize. And what happened last time, if I recall, because it was Meredith Schuster, who actually took over because this committee, didn't like the extent of the minutes or the detail. She started doing it, and I'm not sure how well that worked either. So I think, for the most part, in all the years I've been dealing with Prototype, they do a really good job. And if they make a mistake or if they put something in wrong, then, if it's technically wrong, then yes, you should. But trying to insert certain things that were said or it may not be, all that profitable to spend your time doing that, just personally. Yes, sir.
And I realize that it's very difficult and challenging to take minutes, especially in some areas where they're technologically complicated. I think the last time was an omission where they just forgot something regarding storm drainage. It was only about 5 minutes of conversation we had, but it was very important to include, and it was omitted. So brought it up, went through, in fact, I went through the liaison, mentioned it, and we had a discussion here. I think it was resolved. Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's very difficult finding 40 minutes, and I think reading their last several 2 or 3 minutes for the meetings, doing an excellent job. They're really getting to the point for what I consider.
Technically, if you do have a concern about the minutes, something in the minutes, and the minutes are actually being recorded. The meeting is recorded.
Right.
So can we hold off on approving a set of minutes and ask to go back and look at what was actually said and make a correction? That is appropriate,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes, and that even happens at commission meetings to me. I guess every other meeting these days, but it happens to me. Commission, a couple meetings ago, we didn't approve the minutes. I went back, had to correct a couple things. One thing you can do if you want to expedite, you can actually put on the record. So let's say the minutes you just approved October 4th and November 1st. Let's say on November 1st there was something you thought that was important to be added in there. You could actually put it on the record today for November 1st and say, I want to add this to the record. This is important. And you can approve those November 1st minutes and still put on the record something you want that you think is important in this current meeting, which will end up in the minutes. You can do that too.
That's a very
I think
good.
that's what Peter and we did the last time. But also putting the time on that covers that portion in the meeting. That's what I did. I put it was like 2:20 or 2:30 or something like that, which homes it in for those preparing.
Yeah, and so whatever you say in today's meeting, if it is in fact something that wasn't in the minutes, or sometimes, because I've been a liaison in the past, and sometimes someone will say, well, I really didn't mean to say that. The point I wanted to make was this. That's okay if you put it in the current minutes. Now you have the board member clarifying something, it will end up in
The
the
next
set of minutes
minutes.
of the meeting you're in, right? So if you wanna clarify something, you can always do it on the record at the current meeting you're in. Going back is always more difficult. It's not as efficient. It's better if you just, if it's something that's wrong, yeah, you wanna correct it.
Okay, Peter?
So we did do that last time to the minutes of October the 4th, but we added and amended them, but we brought those minutes back this time. We just
Right.
approved that. So are you saying
You
we
can do
didn't
that.
actually need to bring those minutes of October the
If
4th back?
it's something you didn't include and that you wanted to put on the record that wasn't even in the minutes, you can always just mention it at the meeting you're at and say, I wanna include this and highlight this, and it'll be in there.
But then it
because you
appears on the
clarified
current minutes, doesn't it, rather
Yeah.
than the minutes
it.
of the
Yeah,
meeting?
and that's okay. That's okay.
Well, but if you're reading October the 4th, and in Ralph's case, something significant was possibly omitted and misinterpreted, surely it's better to have that reflected in the official October the 4th meetings.
So there's two options.
It's still on the record. I mean,
Yeah,
you
but
still put it on the record.
No, the reason why you don't put it in October the 4th minute is because the public will say, look what they tried to sneak in on us. I was at the meeting and this wasn't said.
Well, you can't,
I know.
correct me if I'm wrong, you can't put something in the minutes that wasn't said at
That's
the
right.
meeting. I mean, you
That's
can't
right.
go back and say, I meant to say,
That's right.
you can't do that, right?
That's
You
right.
you
I've stopped that one.
you stopped that one, right,
Yeah,
yes.
but that's the reason why I think it is better to put it in today's minute and mention that you would like to have it reflected as part of, well, not part of, but referencing the minutes of October, whatever the.
Previous.
Yeah.
Previous.
And you could do it either way, and I think everyone's correct here. What Peter said, yeah, it's nice to have it in there, but in the case when in the case when you said something you didn't mean, you don't go back and change it like Marilyn said.
Right.
And you can really take that one step further, and if it's not something technically wrong, but it's something you thought may have been mentioned, you wanna note something, you can do that in the current minutes. But Peter's right, if it's really important that it be in that subject matter that you're talking about, then you can correct. Well, I'm just giving you options and trying to give you the spectrum. It really is an art. There's no science to it, there's no right, there's no wrong. You can do all these different methods.
So would you say that it's really a question of the significance of the issue? If it's a really, really significant issue, you wanna take Peter's route and
Yes.
go back and not approve the minutes until they're corrected. But if it's something that is not, the world will come to an end one way or the other, you can probably in the current minutes say, I want it on the record that was, da-da-da-da-da-da, whatever you wanna put.
Yes,
All right,
yes,
Yes.
correct.
Roosevelt.
But my objection to it is this, and then I'm through with it. If I went tomorrow or the next day and got a verbatim of today's minutes, and I read them, and then 2 weeks later, Maryland get a set of the minutes or next month, and they are not the same, it creates a problem. That's why you don't go back, because I got verbatim and you got verbatim and they're not the same. One of them is wrong. And me being little junior public, I'm gonna be coming at somebody because I wanna find out which one of these minutes is correct. Was it said or wasn't it said? And
That's why you can go back to the actual time that the alleged statement was made. And the they should be able to extract that and get it exactly how it was said.
Yeah, that's when it was actually said, but if you forgot to say it,
That's correct.
and you want to put it in because it's important.
Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
No, you can't do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remember too, the prototype is summarizing what you're saying. They're not
Yes.
writing it in the exact way you said it, because the whole purpose of summary minutes is to give the reader, the person reading, an understanding in a summary. If you read verbatim, it'd be hard to figure out
Yeah.
through reading all of them what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why summary really is the best kind of minutes, but they are obviously difficult to do.
And obviously, we're not a quasi judicial group.
Right.
You know, if you're a quasi judicial group, you know, everything has to be boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And if somebody really wants to say, well, what happened on October 14th? I'm confused. Just go to the video. Go to the videotape.
And the specificity of those minutes,
Mhm.
when you do a communication to the commission, that's the one you want
Those are
to really hone in on and really be specific and really think about what you're saying, because they do take those communications and they talk about them at commission meetings. That's the one you really want to be 100% on, and where prototype's going to really take that extra step to make sure that that's very clear
That's cool.
and succinct.
And if any member wants to specifically have something included in the minutes of this meeting, for instance, simply say to the note taker, and I want it in, on the record that I believe thus and such, or I think thus and such, and then should put it right in, no question. So if it's really
That's
important to
really-
you, just do it.
That's a very good practical approach to it. That you're saying, you're kind of raising the flag, saying this, what I'm talking about now is very important. That's a really good idea.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff, our city clerk? No? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for,
Little refresher, yes?
Just for the record, Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but Jeff is leaving the city.
I was gonna say that, but
So-
I figured I'd ask you before I said that.
yeah, sometime in January.
Oh,
So
Jeff.
I would like the record to reflect.
There you go.
Thanks to Jeff and all the hard work he's put in.
For these many
Overseeing
years.
things on our behalf and for the city in general.
Thank you.
And for all the help you give all of the advisory boards and even citizens who ask for just information on how does this work and how do we do this? So
Thank you.
you've done stellar work, Jeff. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And if any board member wants to do a sunshine, a one-on-one, we offer sunshine once a year to all board members.
Mhm.
But if you wanna do a one-on-one with Lynette and I, you can make an appointment and we'll go over everything for, a half hour or so. Just sit down one-on-one and talk about sunshine if you wanna do that. So that's available to you as well.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, public comments at each item. No, we're still in general discussion and comments by committee members. So, does anybody wanna bring up any items that are not already on the agenda? We have a lot of items on the agenda. You have something different? Or an addition?
Something I'd like to bring up under members of the ITF, things they can bring up at this point, correct?
General discussion, comments,
General
yes,
discussion.
absolutely.
So, in reading the last minutes, I was reminded of our request to, that staff prepare and give to the commission a report at regular intervals on, for shorthand, we called it the top 10 issues.
we got
And my
that.
question is that, maybe you're going to answer this, is this coming up in connection with agenda item 5, top infrastructure priorities?
I would think so.
Is that the
The
intention?
top 10, that's the top 10
Yes?
to talk about that, yes.
Okay, so that, when we get to that, that will
I'll
be.
explain how to
Okay.
derive to that.
All right.
Okay.
And then I have a second thing as
Yes,
well.
sir.
So, we're probably all aware that the infrastructure bill passed, at least I think it did.
Yep.
So, an extract from the newspaper. So, Florida is supposed to be getting 245 million for bridge replacement and repairs. And the White House estimates that there are 408 bridges and 3,500 odd miles of highways in poor condition for that 245 million. So I would like to put it on the record that this is an ideal opportunity to go after funding. Bridges are my thing for those bridges. We have a number still of bridges rated structurally inadequate, whatever that terminology is. And frankly, this is the opportunity to fix those. And really, in 3 or 4 years' time, we shouldn't have any bridges that are in that category because the funding appears to be there. And if our lobbyists know what they're doing, we should go get it and get the money for those bridges that are in that category that would definitely qualify. End of story.
Just got a question. Number one, I agree with you. We should be trying to get the money to fix all our bridges. But 243 million is not gonna do it. You need that much in Broward County.
No, I know, but that's why you have to be the first one in the door.
Which brings up a very good question. What is the city's strategy?
Mhm.
Given the, not only the bridges, but water treatment plants? I mean,
Mhm.
that's in that bill as well. There's a whole bunch of things. It's transit in there as well.
Yeah.
So what is the city's strategy in going forward to tap those funds? Now, I'm sure that every city is gonna be like camping out in Tallahassee, you know, and lobbying for forever for those funds. And I'm sure our governor has got already in his mind who's getting what and how he's gonna do it. But, you know, this is a bigger issue than just our bridges. This
No,
is like,
But
how are we gonna divvy
How
up
do we
this
know they're
pie?
allocated by the state?
You know what? I'm assuming. I should not assume. I should not
All you
assume.
gotta do is look at what they done with lower, I shouldn't say low income housing, but what they did with the money that was allocated for affordable housing and the way they was divvying that up to
They were using-
everything,
There is no
itself.
they. There is not a they. So the DDA's been very involved over the years in lobbying for funds, procured over $100 million for the wave that didn't happen. So there's a bunch of different avenues to chase the funds. There's the federal level.
Mhm.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been a big advocate at downtown Fort Lauderdale. We continue to reach out to her. I believe the city has a lobbying contract with a firm. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Oh,
the
yes, they do.
details.
They do. They have 2 lobbyists.
I know they got one for.
And they have a lobby, and they have a lobby lady. They have a
With the
director of
DDA,
lobby.
the DDA, we have lobbying efforts going on right now
And you got MPO.
for funds for the redevelopment of Huizenga Plaza. With both this, mainly working on the state level, but we're also working the federal level as well. So I think that's a prime item to discuss with staff to see what exactly the game plan is.
Yeah.
To chase it,
I agree.
because my experience with both the federal and the state level is if you take the time to go chase, there's money there to be had.
True.
But
And
you need projects, you need identified specific items that, especially if the politicians are involved, to say, look what we did.
Mhm.
And
Not
cut
that
the
we got you
ribbon.
some money, but
cut the ribbon.
look, yeah, let's cut this ribbon.
Yeah.
So,
So the,
it's there, you can get it.
yeah, I said I assumed that they were going to, the state was going to divvy it up. And my assumption is based on the fact that they've already told the states, you know, this is what you're getting, this is your part of the pie. And the easiest way for the feds to do it is I guess it's the per capita thing. You know, they
Yes.
don't make any decisions, they just divvy up the pie and therefore, but then they always leave another little piece that, you know, that they sort of pick the priorities on. So you're absolutely right, we should be asking, or whoever, whatever group becomes the new group, some of us may be here, some of us may not, but I think that's a very big direction that we could be looking in and trying to understand and help the staff and work with them and make some suggestions on how we should go about getting some of this money, so that's gonna be a
We
big.
did have a lobbyist come speak to us before,
Yes,
but now it is doubly
oh,
urgent.
it's big
So
now.
I think in a very soon upcoming agenda, we should ask whoever is in control of lobbying at the federal and state level
Mhm.
to come in and say what the strategy is, because the game has changed now. There's much more dollars there than there was 6 months ago.
And the effort you're gonna have to use to get those dollars is exponentially increased, so perhaps on another, I hate to be planning a next agenda, but perhaps in the January agenda, we might ask the city manager to come and talk about what's the city's plan and strategy, how are we gonna change our ways, or are we gonna do something different, or do we need other resources to go after this, cause we have one woman who was our lobbyist up in Tallahassee, and she was doing a great job, she's right on it, but she's one woman. And it's time maybe we should be, but they may already have a strategy, they may already have people in their grants program that are thinking about this, but perhaps we should ask him to share some of that with us.
I have to say that in my limited experience, the DDA has been extremely successful in going after grants and funding, etc. So they definitely know how to conduct this business.
Okay, and there's what role is the MPO playing in all of this? I mean, because obviously you can't use federal funds or state funds unless you get some blessing from the MPO. So we really need to understand the process and how they're approaching it and what resources they may need.
They're supposed to prioritize projects
Yes.
within their area of jurisdiction. But I have known several times, end runs around the MPO.
Mhm.
And I could never quite understand it.
Yeah, well, that's politics. Okay, thank you for bringing that up, and that's something that we should be thinking about, and I'll talk with the staff about how we can get that on our next agenda. Because that really there's only 2 agendas left. So, public comments at each point. We have a member of the public. Does the public wanna speak on that? Well, that's not an item, that's a discussion. Let's move on to the items, shall we? Old business, improvements of the 40-year inspection process. Now, you all got a copy, can we bring it up, of the, let's see. It's a PowerPoint presentation.
It's huge.
Yeah, I don't know if you can. Okay, can we just go back to the table of That's all that.
It's page 121, it starts with that.
With that, the whole sunshine thing in there too?
Yeah.
The backup?
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Oh, okay. No, advisory
going.
board forms.
Keep going.
Uh-huh, that's what I asked them to put up. I don't think it's up there, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. That's the statement of work which is the next item on the agenda. Consent order progress meeting, no. It may not be there.
Peter, you should take them 21.
Yeah,
They're only on.
as it comes up, it starts at page, what's it again? It starts at page 120 of 266.
We're getting close. Recommendations of Broward County Condominium
There it
Structural
is.
Issues Committee.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we all got this information. Hopefully, we've all had a chance to take a look at it. It was actually a PowerPoint presentation, you recall? Okay. And I thought personally that it was very comprehensive, and their that's it, summary report, Okay, can we just get to the summary? That's really all we need. After the tragedy, keep going. Summary. Okay, keep going. There was actually a boom.
It's committee recommendations, 129 of 266. That's
Committee,
it, that's it.
come back down,
Go up a bit.
up a bit.
That's
Alright,
it.
stop. Committee recommendations, okay. So here's the recommendations of the Broward County Board, and I must say there were lots of people on it, lots of good people, very knowledgeable people. They did a very wide, public participation group, so from the process-wise, I think they did an excellent job. And so here are their recommendations. They want to they want to make the inspection program statewide, which is right now it's only Miami-Dade and Broward, so bingo, that's the first recommendation right off the top. And they are going to 30 years instead of 40 years, that's their recommendation. And subsequent inspections every 10 years. So it's, instead of being 40 and 10, now it'll be 30 and 10, it'll be statewide. Alright?
That's a recommendation.
That's these are all recommendations. Can we go to the next one? The inspection programs require that prior to each required inspection, you have to do certain things. And this is so that people know that this is going on, alright? Because most boards have no idea that their buildings are undergoing 40-year inspections. Unless somebody tells them and they see the engineers banging on the walls, they have no idea. So now you're gonna involve the boards more in these inspections. You're gonna make sure that they get notice that it's going on, that the engineer, well, I'm not gonna read it all. They wanna make people more involved in the process so that they can't say, well, we didn't know and therefore the building fell down. Can we go to the next one? Number three, building safety inspection program requirements include, now this is new. Because right now, the 40-year inspections are only the electrical and something structural. Electrical is structural. And when they say structural, they don't mean structural, they mean is like the cement peeling and stuff like that, because I've been through it. And all they did is they tap to make sure that the stucco wasn't coming off, all right? Essentially. But now they're gonna get a little more specific, and I'm not the engineer here. And if you engineer guys had taken a look at this and you feel that, this
Steel
is.
rebar, when it rusts, it expands, so they
Right.
tap on it, then
Mhm.
usually push it.
So, but they're even going for testing concrete core samples. I mean, they're getting really hot and heavy on this. Charlie, what do you think about that?
It's good.
It's good, it's good. Well, if Charlie thinks it's good, we're good.
Buildings along the Gulf are falling apart. They're gonna have to spend a lot of money on it.
Oh, they're gonna be very unhappy when they find this out. I have, just as an aside, my accountant, we just did our reserve study, and I have an accountant who has 80 clients in Fort Lauderdale. And he was telling me that, some of these condos are all facing $100,000 assessments apiece, like,
I know River Reach, which is not on the ocean. Age-wise is probably a 70s, 80s building,
Yeah.
90s. They're 30,000 a unit.
I've heard things like 100,000
Some
a
of that's,
unit.
they're replacing the glass, which is pre-Andrew glass. The balconies, I've seen repair work over there. Some of them are down to rebar all the way back to the exterior wall. It's gotta be done.
It's gotta be done,
That's
so.
reality. And the Galt stuff, where you, especially some of those have basement garages. Big money,
Mhm.
big money.
Yes, indeed. Oh, goodness. See, the thunder just at the appropriate point, just at the appropriate point.
thought it was another
I'm glad to see the county. I'm glad to see the county has grabbed the ball and gotten going on this. And it's the for the people in the condos, yes, this is a big thing, but the other side of the coin is I would hate to have to be trying to sell my condo in an older building like that without having these answers. Because nobody in their right mind should be buying a condo without knowing
Yeah,
what the answers are.
There's a lot involved in a lot of the older buildings, especially with the old steel rebar and the concrete. And there's better, and I wrote that article back in August, September about high-rise, multi-story failures. And it just is amazing what I've been able to just go out and see with, you know, you've got cracks on the walls in the parking, over the parking areas. Not everything means disaster.
Disaster.
It's gotta be looked at with scrutiny. And also back when I was over, this goes back 2-3 years, when I was in the jet stop building, parking.
Mhm.
And I noticed on the top floor of the vehicular parking area that there was a crack and a gap, several of them, and also down the ramps. And what had happened was water came in and got in there as the steel rebars started to rust. The rust process expands. Percolation expands it, and then what happens, it cracks the concrete.
Well, you know, on the 17th Street Bridge, I hate to tell you this, but I live close to the 17th Street Bridge. Every time it rains, water is gushing through, looks like the expansion joints. It's just gushing, right? It's not going into where it's supposed to go, like the drain. You know, there's drains and there's gutters. No. It's just gushing out of areas that
Concrete's
just.
porous too.
Oh.
So it's,
So, I mean, yes, everybody's gonna have to bite the bullet
and
more, okay?
And Charlie, you mentioned about, or you mentioned about the balconies. Years back, they were putting carpet on the outdoor balconies. And it rained, and that kept the moisture in there rather than drying up, which accelerated the rusting process of the rebars. And what happened is those balconies start collapsing.
Yeah, but I'm not really I don't really think that we can look to the legislature to do some of these hard things, because look what they did with the fire, with the sprinklers. They've been putting off requiring sprinklers in some of these older buildings to 20 years. Every time the deadline comes, they complain and they push the deadline back another 5 years.
We're not gonna change that.
No, you're never gonna change that.
But I'm very excited to see that this has moved along as fast as it has.
Okay, so can we go to a recommendation number 4? 4, Florida statutes be amended to require that no later than 30 days after the receipt of the inspection, condominium associations have to distribute. Again, this is one of those things where they have to make sure that everybody in the condominium is aware of the problem. And 5, that the Florida statutes be amended to require engineers performing the work for condominium associations actually file their reports with the local government and provide written notification to the condominium association of any life safety issues observed. Okay, so that's here's the big one, number 6, condominium reserves. The Florida statute should be amended to require that the list of required reserves in condominium association budgets also include reserve accounts for concrete restoration and other structural items. I just finished doing the reserve for my condominium. It's not in there. It's not in there. And I don't know any condominium that has a specific reserve set aside for their concrete restoration, testing of the concrete, repairing concrete. If this is changed, because right now, there are enumerated things that you have to put in your reserve fund. The state tells you, there's a workbook, it says you must have the roof, the painting, the elevator, yada, 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 but doesn't say anything about the structural integrity of the building. If they put that in, that's gonna be a major change and gonna wake up a lot of people. Yes, Peter?
I think some reserve studies, because they just take things like the roof and say they have a typical life of 30 years, so they
Right.
write it off over 30 years, and then they say this roof is 25 years old, so there's another 5 years left, and it's gonna cost X, and they divide X by 5 years left. I think the fabric of the building, I don't say it's always included, but if it has a 100-year life, then they ought to be writing that off over 100 years, you know?
No, that's not the way it works.
No?
No, it's we have a 40-year period. You have to project for 40 years, but nothing lasts 40 years. So you have to project the reasonable life expectancy of the component. I mean, I don't know any roofs that are gonna go 30 years. My roof, I can only tell you from my experience, we budget for 20 years. Okay, paint, some people will budget paint, on a 5-year cycle, some people will budget paint on a 7-year cycle. you know, those are discretionary items that the boards have to make. But doing reserves is very complicated, and by giving guidance in the legislation as to what items now have to be included, I think is a big, big improvement on the sort of, you know, laissez-faire attitude. Yes.
But the big problem, which is a legislature issue, is that condos can vote to not provide adequate reserves.
Excellent.
And the interests of the members are not aligned with the interests of the building overall.
Yes, but that's gonna change too. I don't know if it's in this one, but Tallahassee is gonna change that. I was at a workshop, Becker and Polyakoff workshop, talking about what's going on in Tallahassee. They're not gonna allow the majority of the members at a particular meeting to waive the reserves. Now it's gonna be a much higher threshold to waive the reserves. Cause my old condominium, if you had 15 people in a meeting, and that, you know, the majority of the 15 people could waive the reserves, and you didn't have reserves. So now they're gonna raise that threshold.
The whole thing gets interesting because the other side of it is the interest accrual on those reserves is negligible.
Now, negligible.
The other, and you could argue just as easily, hey, when it's time to do this, do it in one lump sum. You can finance it, it's easily financed, the condo board can finance it. Let the people that are doing it deal with it then, some will wanna pay cash, some will wanna finance the improvements. It's a hard call, but it will be driven by the insurance companies
Yes.
because they won't write insurance. You know, they're gonna make decisions on what they will write insurance for. These buildings are insured. I assume Champlain was insured.
Yeah.
And it'll be driven by the lenders. Because the lenders may say, we're not gonna make a loan on a building that doesn't have proper reserves. They may say, we're not gonna worry about it.
And I'll be right with you, you know who else is gonna drive it? It's the potential purchases. Cause I have several brokers in my building, which is fully reserves, 100%. And they say when they bring people around, that's the first thing they take out and they show them, look, these guys, full reserves. You're not only purchasing the apartment, you're purchasing the equity in the reserve fund.
Correct.
So, yes, we're,
We are beating up on the condos pretty bad, but what about buildings that are not condos? Huge buildings that are not condos.
commercial buildings, for
Yes.
instance. You know what? I don't
And-
think that this deals with that.
But I don't see how they can, you know, somehow in this world, we always jump on the lease, the people who can at least afford it. You're gonna jump on all the condo owners, but you're not gonna get with the construction guy here, what's his name?
Siles, probably.
Yeah, you know, and I believe if you're gonna have those kind of restrictions on the condos, then you should have those same restrictions on commercial building. This
Yeah.
building here should have the same requirements as those buildings over there on Federal.
That's a very
They
interesting
do have
perspective.
the commercial buildings have a 40-year inspection.
What a year,
Do
and then
they?
10 years thereafter.
Yeah, but are they applying all this stuff?
Why do they need to? I own the building, it's my responsibility and my liability.
Yeah, but I work on the 10th floor, and if that building collapses, I'm dead.
Correct, and you're gonna
Yes.
sue me and take every
Yeah, but I'm
penny
dead,
I-
Charlie. I can't
Well,
sue you,
that's-
I'm
But that's how
dead.
the system works. It's
Yes,
all free and
I'm
fair.
sorry. Gerald,
There is a difference, and that is, up until the certificate of occupancy, these buildings are inspected innumerable times. You go through it every day, and if there's not signatures, you can't proceed forward to the certificate of occupancy.
To seal.
Correct.
Okay, in a commercial building, there's a dependency here. In a condominium, everything after that, whether it's required or not, is done by a vote of the unit owners. Not true in a commercial building. Commercial building is
It's one owner.
one owner. And if you wanna say that somebody should look into how the owners must take care of the building, that's one thing. But to say that they're equal, they're not.
And as an owner,
You know,
I have to get insurance as an owner, okay? If I own a building, I have a mortgage, my mortgage lender, I don't know many buildings in the United States that don't have a mortgage on them. In order to have my mortgage, I have to have insurance. The insurance companies watch this stuff like a hawk. And we're buying buildings now, they don't wanna insure buildings that have IFAS. IFAS is a synthetic stucco, it's styrofoam covered with stucco. They don't wanna insure them because the building, it leaks behind them and they don't get properly maintained. So these insurance companies are all over this. And if I don't maintain that building, then I'm at huge risk, both to not have insurance and a mortgage lender that stays on top of it. So it's actually, the difficulty with the condo buildings are, you have a committee that is responsible for that building and is responsible for those owners. In other words, Joe Blow that lives in his condo can't say, I'm gonna go get an engineer to come look at this building because I wanna make sure it's okay. He's one of maybe 100 or 200 or 300 people. So that condo board is there to represent Joe Blow. Whereas the person that owns the building, I own a building, is my responsibility, and my mortgage lender and my insurer are gonna make sure that I do my job within reason. And as an owner, you risk everything you have. That if, in other words, if Joe Blow owned Champlain South and it was a rental apartment building, he's wiped out. Done.
That's good when you look at it financially. But if you look at it for safety purposes,
But they have they do 40-year inspections for the commercial buildings as well. And if they find stuff, you gotta fix it. And I'm sure it's being beefed up, and that it may not be being treated here in this document, but I'm sure that there's been a structural inspection that's hot on the behind the condos to add that on as an element of the inspections. I mean, I walked the SunTrust building myself personally because I'm enjoying watching the underground of the related buildings. So I go by there on weekends and I'll go up and walk up the garage. There's probably 20 pieces of exposed rebar in that garage. Okay, it's coming. They're gonna have an inspection and they're gonna be in there fixing that thing, trust me. But it's a different thing because you're not trying to pass a law to protect individual owners that don't have a say in whether Maryland as her board decides to fix a building. It's different, there's one owner.
And it's really even worse than that, because there are some people in the condominium who have no long-term interest, okay? They own it, they're renting it, they're gonna flip it, so they don't care what happens 10 years down the line, they're in it only for the time being. So that really, that's why I along with Charlie, am very gratified to see that the legislature is taking this seriously and is addressing very specifically some of the issues with the condominiums. But you bring up a good point and I think about the idea that I'm in this building, right? I will not get in those elevators with more than 3 people, all right? Because they shake. No, really. There was a time when I would walk up and down the 8 floors to come up here because those elevators were such bad shape. Now that they're taking better care of them than they used to. But there was a time when I wouldn't get in those elevators.
The problem
Public
is,
safety.
with condos specifically,
Yeah.
is that they try to get the reserves for common areas.
Mhm.
And people in there short term or whatever don't wanna invest in putting money into the common area, because that's a long-term basis. Their responsibility for a condo owner is basically internally inside their condominium.
No, actually, they would prefer, some of them would prefer to put it in the common areas, cause that's what drives the sale of their apartment, and they wouldn't put it in the plumbing, because nobody, when they buy an apartment, goes and checks the plumbing,
It's different,
you know?
yeah, different.
But they look at the lobby, oh, the lobby is beautiful, yeah. All right, I think we've gotten to,
Beat that one down.
we've beaten this one. So I bring this up because when we had our discussion with the commission, the mayor suggested, now maybe, we should be looking at this whole issue of the 40-year inspection. Me personally, I don't think that we bring any value added to this process that has already been put on the table with these people. So I would, Peter, do you agree or not?
I largely agree with that, except this does get into the discussion. I can't remember if there's a specific recommendation attached to it, but it gets into the discussion about the sea level rise and the flooding risk and things like that. So one area which we possibly could get involved with is the standards that the city is applying to new buildings, whether we feel comfortable with the standards that they're applying to new buildings fully reflect the reality of climate change and rising sea level.
Are you talking now about the FEMA levels and the seawalls and the,
I'm really talking about when a development comes in,
yeah?
what standards are being applied to drainage,
Construction
below
materials.
ground construction and floor level with respect to sea level rise and also flooding issues as well. Because those numbers for sea level rise and increasing intensity of storms are kind of scary. And it appeared to indicate that even though those standards have been increased, they're not really keeping up with how dire things are becoming.
I know that we have gone through a great big process of raising our seawalls and changing our ordinances to require the new seawalls be, remember? The new seawalls being higher, and I know that every time you build a new building now, it's gotta be 3 or 4 feet off the sidewalk because we got ramps going up into all of our new buildings. So the question is not, are they cognizant of it and are they making things, but is it enough?
Correct.
So maybe that's a discussion with, have you any experience with this?
Yeah, that's just, so it's dictated by FEMA right now, you have to be a foot above the base floor, or base flood elevation.
Which is raised.
It was raised recently, but then the state came back and said that you cannot make a developer abide by the preliminary maps until they're actually adopted, and they've been in the adoption process for the past 3 years.
Oh, God bless the state.
I don't know why the federal government hasn't adopted them yet, but, so that's where you are now. I don't know that the city can go beyond what they're already doing. So kind of at their max.
Shane, couldn't the city even increase the flooding intensity standards at a city level?
I should,
Just purely on the basis of current evidence?
so we're gonna have a debate about that, that's not our place or our role to do that. I disagree with your current evidence.
And the city's not necessarily the AHJ. Broward County is the authority having jurisdiction over the drainage design and requirements on a commercial level. Single-family house, there's not too much guidance from the county. The city actually steps in, and they did increase their requirements for single-family homes.
They
Slightly.
appeared to give, in this, as backup to this, and obviously they had a presentation from somebody with the county, they appeared to give 3 examples of fairly recent buildings where it appeared that the standard to which they were designed for flooding, and I think overtopping of seawalls, was inadequate and they had to be changed retroactively. It was tough to tell because it was just one graphic, but if people feel the city has no room for maneuver in that, then we'd be wasting our time to go into it.
I just remember how controversial it was the first time around to make the changes that were necessary to be made. I mean, meetings and people crying and screaming about, I can't afford my seawalls and stuff like that, and the city is spending a whopping amount of money fixing their own seawalls right now.
Wait till they get to requiring finished floor elevations to be raised up and
Well,
then
they
changing-
do.
And
They-
changing, and changing the concrete quality and from the steel to a stainless steel type of
Yeah.
reinforcing. I mean, there's a lot of things that they're doing and have done and have developed, but trying to get people to do that is, it's a tug of war to get, and the tides are increasing, the saltwater intrusion is getting more prevalent and going further in, and all those ingredients are.
They even talk about potentially raising finished floors of existing buildings in the 40-year
report.
inspection report. And that's, I don't know how you can require somebody to do that. That's you demoing the building.
You have to. Well, historic preservation's got that same issue. Every time we try and, restore and preserve a historic building, in Norfolk, they have a whole district that now what they're doing is they're raising the buildings and they're putting balloons under them so that they float. I mean, I read this article, it was hysterical about what the lengths they're going through to try and cope with it. And all we have to do is stop using gas. I mean, it's amazing to me, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, so I think have we exhausted this this subject?
We beat this one up.
We have, okay, and then
So
we're
we're-
not recommending to the commission that we wanna do anything on this particular one?
Are we going to move on, or are we going to explicitly say to the commission we're very comfortable with the important recommendations that the county has produced?
Well, we don't have to say we're very comfortable, we could say we're gratified and, you know,
Action's
perhaps
being taken.
that action's being taken and that we don't necessarily believe we bring any value added to this. I mean, there's not much more that we,
I think that the value that this committee could add is to produce a summary of what exactly is happening regarding the 4-year inspection process as a result of Champlin. In other words, to wade through a massive document is difficult for anybody to do. And I think we're an advisory committee. One thing that I think we could do is try to boil down the current status of what is happening from the county and state level to react to this. That's something as a committee I think that we could achieve that would have value.
in other words, do more than their recommendations or?
No, what did the recommendations say in less than, you know, can we get a 2-page summary of what those recommendations are? And that a layman can understand, or a commissioner can understand of what exactly is in the works.
Mhm.
That to me has value that maybe a busy commissioner may not otherwise get to see or understand.
Okay, like, let me give you a, for instance, like recommendations 2 and 3 are meant to involve the boards more in the process. Recommendation 4 and 5 is
Yeah,
to,
they're shortening that for condos, they're gonna shorten it from a 40 to a 30-year inspection, they're gonna bring in a structural element. They're gonna have guidelines as to how fast that has to be acted upon.
Mhm.
That, if that can be summarized into a like
a narrative as opposed
narrative
to,
or a press, what do they call it, presses, or they used to do a summary of a book.
Tracy,
That would have value. And as a committee, as an advisory committee, that to me would be something that is like up our alley.
okay. And into that, we could also then add any other concerns, maybe sea level
Yeah,
rise
it-
wasn't done enough
Well, and say,
or,
hey, this is what's happening with condos, this on the office, on the commercial building side. You know, I don't know personally what is happening on that level. Maybe John Travers can tell us as the chief building official. But that to me is what our role that's right up our alley.
okey dokey. All right, let me work on that.
so
You wanna work on that with
maybe
me?
a future meeting, we ask John to come back.
To talk about the commercial side.
And what he
Well-
sees from the condo side based on this is his job.
Get him to comment on this.
Yeah, see what's the city doing based on what they're seeing from the county and the state? They part of their job and their requirements are they have to be in tune with the county. You know, the county has power over the city.
I think he would have a good handle on how some of these ideas are progressing or not progressing.
Okay.
So I think he would be useful to talk to us.
Okay,
As you
so
did
we'll get
once
John to
before.
come back.
Yes, I think
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Very good. Okay, we'll do that. All right, improvements to the 40, P3 communication to the commission.
Is there going to be public comment after each item?
Yes, would you like to comment on that?
Excuse me?
Would you like to comment on the 40-year
Well, I'd like
inspection?
to have an opportunity to.
Oh,
See,
certainly,
that's why she's
I'm
asking.
asking.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah,
she's
well, I
asking
mean,
you.
I didn't know that was your, yeah, certainly, pull up a chair.
Well, you should just mention it after each item, as it's supposed to be done. I think that you guys need to also inspect the storm drains and make sure that they're properly put into place. Ralph
The-
brought up, has been
The county
talking
has
about,
a inspection
what's that?
required. County has a 5-year inspection that's already required for all.
Yeah,
Private storm
okay,
drainage.
hang on a second. Ralph has been complaining about a group of storm drains in an intersection for the last 10 years. And Nancy Gassman basically put in writing that, no, they're just holding tanks. They're not really storm drains. And so she even got up in front of the city commission a week or two ago and lied her face off, basically saying, oh, they're not holding tanks. There's little bitty holes at the bottom of these catchment basins, and that's where the water runs out. Well, that's not how they're supposed to be. That's not what a storm catchment basin is supposed to be.
Respectfully, this isn't pertinent to the 40-year inspection.
Respectfully, this is my 3 minutes that I get to say as a public person, and I'll take my time back with that. I mean, I would like to hear what you have to say about storm drains after I'm done speaking. Storm drains that go into a catchment tank, and then it takes months for the water to evaporate out of the top of that little 18 by 18 inch grate. I mean, they were implemented completely without the proper engineering. And people have been complaining about it. This is just one example. You're texting, you're not even listening. This is one example of what's going on. And there's probably thousands more in the city of the same thing happening. So basically what should have been done is the catchment basin should have these PVC pipes slotted that go out, I don't know, 30 feet or so down under the grassy swale. And that's where the water is distributed. But instead, it was just half installed. So the way for the water to get out was never done. So it makes the situation even worse than not having a storm drain catchment system, because it pools all the water to one place. The holding tank fills up, and then you have a pond there for a long time.
Can you tell us how that relates to the 40-year inspection? I'm listening to you.
What I'm saying,
we were
right,
talking about
right.
the 40-year inspection.
And what I'm saying is, not only should you be inspecting buildings on a 40-year basis, but you also need to inspect and make sure that storm drains are put in properly. I mean, it's a very basic thing. I'm adding on to this. Sorry if it's off topic a little bit, but we have this huge problem here, okay? So
Where is the problem?
Thank you.
it's an imperial point.
Gentlemen.
It's a intersection over there
Don't engage.
that it's just, yeah. Yeah, Marilyn, you're
Don't
just shushing
engage.
me. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
you don't want
shushing
to.
you.
Well, you know
You
what?
have your
He's
3
got a
minutes.
question. He's got a
You
question.
have your 3 minutes
That's right.
to speak on anything you want to speak on.
Exactly.
And you want to continue, you got about another minute on storm drains if you want to go on.
Yeah, I
Yes,
know. And then
go
I'm
on.
going to talk about the 5-Esh plan too.
Excellent.
And you know what?
You
should
have 3 minutes, every subject, you have 3
absolutely, and I'd
minutes.
like to use my 3
And you
minutes.
will, we will afford you
Thank
that
you.
opportunity.
Good.
Okay,
Can I speak?
yes, certainly.
So I'm a new member of this committee.
Oh,
or
God, you know what?
advisory
We
board.
should have started
I
from the
would,
beginning.
I
Oh,
was
jeez,
gonna-
I'm so
know
sorry.
This gentleman, but would it be protocol to be introduced before? Because I've never met you before, and I'm listening to you, and I think stormwater issues are important. You're not on the agenda for today, but I think they are important, and I think I've seen them mentioned in past minutes where we've had
Yes.
some serious discussions about them. So my question is, when we have speakers such as this gentleman, do they introduce themselves first, or
Yes.
is he a regular at the
He's a
meeting where
regular,
everybody
no,
knows him?
he
or-
usually, I'm sorry, that was procedurally incorrect. First, the incorrect procedure was I did not, at the beginning of the meeting, take an opportunity to introduce James Labrie. Labrie, is that how you say it? Labrie. James is the newest member of our very little band here. And James, do you wanna just give us a little brief of who you are and what you do and how you came to be on this? What's your concern and who appointed you and what's your concerns?
Wow,
I'd like
okay.
to hear about your masochism and joining.
I've been a resident of Fort Lauderdale for a little over 19 years now. Moved here from Boston. I own a home in Poinsettia Heights. I've lived there the entire time that since I've moved here. A background, I have a bachelor's degree in medical laboratory science and an MBA from Boston University. I'm retired now, but prior to retiring, I worked for a medical software company that or that designed and built and installed medical software at hospitals and doctors' offices. And the last 3 years that I was working, I was part of their international group. I lived and worked in Singapore for 3 years.
Oh.
Was retired in 2017. Keeping busy, I've had an opportunity now that I'm retired to become more involved in Poinsettia Heights Civic Association, a neighborhood civic association. And actually, stormwater is one of the big issues that we have in Poinsettia Heights, along with some serious traffic issues, particularly when the force main work was being done on 18th Street and 15th Avenue. We have sidewalk issues, other problems going on infrastructure-wise. So I mean, I appreciate that this gentleman got up and spoke. It is an issue that's close to me as well, the stormwater part at least. So that's why I brought up asking to know who he was and what's the typical protocol.
Mr.
But,
Corbin, would you
Mr.
introduce yourself?
Commissioner Glassman appointed me to this commission.
Oh.
Mr. Dodd, we've actually exchanged a few emails already, I think, haven't we? Yes. I had some interactions, as did some of my neighbors, and then regarding the stormwater issues with Raj, and I understand that he's no longer with the city. So that's how I got involved.
Okay, a concerned citizen, we love it. You'll like us here, we dig deep into these issues, we do dig deep into stormwater issues. Have you, I'm sure of all the material you've gotten to James, you've given him the stormwater master plan, and if you would like, we
I've
could,
downloaded it, I
Yeah,
have it
yeah.
on my laptop. I went through the documents and projects and plans and pulled off a lot of information, as well as the minutes from the past year for this advisory board.
well, it's not a violation of sunshine for you to ask one of us to go over it if you have any questions.
Okay, I
It's not a
appreciate that.
violation of sunshine. I'd be happy to go over it with you. I know Ralph is deep into it, so
Okay, yeah.
he would be a
His
good
name comes
person.
up quite frequently in the minutes.
Yes, okay. Very good. Thank you, James.
All
I
right,
again
all right.
apologize.
Thank you.
All right. So, Boyd Corbin,
Yes.
Mr.
yeah.
Boyd Corbin.
Boyd Corbin.
Boyd
I've been
Corbin,
working
okay.
on the 5-ash issue for 3 years now, and I know more about 5-ash than most of you guys here, and I also talk more frankly and honestly about the Reese reports and the Corolla reports and
Okay.
other things like
Which you also
that.
have to read.
Unlike some of the utility workers that are here in Maryland, I would like
Just
to
a
ask
question,
you,
it's just an introduction, Boyd.
Marilyn, I would like to ask you
Yes.
to follow the agenda. And after each item, as it says right on the agenda, to give room for public comment.
Point well taken after
Thank you
each
very
item. Point well taken.
May I just say one thing?
Yes, Roosevelt.
It's not explicit, but it is intended for the public to make comments on the issue at hand.
Yes.
That and if we are talking about stormwater, the comments should all be about stormwater.
Right.
And you
And
can't go in-
inspections, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's
All
what I just said.
Okie dokie, we're good here. So our next item, P3, communication to the commission. This is we could probably bring it up here. And I wanted us all to reflect on our already stated position to the commission on P3 versus the water treatment plant. Very important for our new people to take a look at this, very important for our recent people to focus on it, because this was quite some time ago that we did this. And just by way of background, we did this at the explicit request of the commission. We didn't just decide we were gonna take a position, we were asked to give a position on it. And we spent, I would say, 3, 4, maybe even 6 months with documents and reading stuff and understanding and trying to, and talking and hashing out and getting examples and going back and forth. And eventually, this was the position that we took. Can we find it?
Keep going. Keep going,
Basically, it stated that
keep going.
would recommend a P3, but the city would have to keep control of the water treatment processes and equipment and such.
That's it,
And rates.
Okay,
Rates.
there,
that's it.
we're,
Now you can see if my memory's good.
yeah, your memory is very good. And we are we're in favor broadly of considering a public-private approach, providing that no form of P3 allows the city to give up ownership of the water quality, or rate structure. And prior to supporting a P3, the city should hire a consultant to evaluate the different types of P3s, because it's a very broad spectrum of P3s, that would be appropriate and beneficial to the city. And we urge them to get started right away because the water treatment plant needs to be fixed. And the C51 reservoir was a different item, which they actually did take our recommendation and do. So,
And this was November the 4th, 2019,
2019, okay. Subsequently,
2 years ago.
the game has changed, right? The city now has been approached, the city is now looking at 4, am I correct? 4 unsolicited P3s. In other words, the city did not hire a consultant and go out and say, this is the plant that we want, this is the place we want it, this is the technology we want. You guys go and bid on this. No, that's not the way it happened. We got 4 guys come in and say, we will build, operate, maintain your sewage treatment, your water treatment plant. And I'm reading directly from the CAM that the city manager wrote when he described that the commission in June 1st of 2021 approved CAM 210586, a resolution providing a notice of intent to enter into a comprehensive agreement for a qualifying project submitted as unsolicited proposals to design, construct, operate, and maintain. That's the whole Megillah, the whole spectrum, not just turnkey, turn it over, not just you go and design it, give us a design and we'll build it. This is the whole enchilada. Correct me if I'm not getting anything right, okay? And we're not talking substance today, because I think we're still under the veil of secrecy. We're only talking process, okay? So, design, construct, operate, and maintain. And it says 1 or more new water treatment plants, which I didn't understand because we're only replacing 1. Am I incorrect on that?
Or rehabilitating the existing.
Is that part of the, are we rehabilitating Pee Wee as well?
Right now, I don't think anybody is proposing to do that.
Right, so 1 or more is it's only the 1.
It's really the one.
It's really the 1, okay, all right. That's good to know because I didn't know we were talking about any other water treatment plant. Okay, and associated systems. What are the associated systems?
Or the storage tanks and the distribution section that is located right now.
So it's the associated systems of the water treatment plant, not other. Okay, cool. So now we know what we're talking about. And a notice of intent to accept other proposals. So those are 4 proposals. Are all 4 of them bidding on the 4 portions? Are they all bidding on the whole enchilada, or is 1 or 2 of them bidding only on the build? Or they're all similar?
I really can't go into
No, you
any
can't.
specifics
All right.
on what they are proposing or not proposing.
All right, but the city has solicited, or has accepted proposals to, what do we call it?
We have received.
You have received the proposals to design, construct, and operate. Okay, so having looked at this, then the city went out and hired Ernst & Young to do what?
I don't have the CAM in front of me with the exact wording of what they're, but really it's, when I look at, you have the scope of work right now.
Right, it's right up there, yeah.
Okay, so I think this lays out statement of work as to what they're doing, but really they're to provide us that external look at it and to try to take different proposals and get them more in an apples to apples comparison.
Okay,
Because they are unsolicited, they're not responding to a specific request. The formatting is a lot different. So they're to try and help us to understand exactly what they're proposing and put into terms so that we can review them.
okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Process-wise, when an unsolicited proposal comes in, they pay $25,000 just because. And then there was a figure of $95,000 for some kind of engineering analysis. Do you know anything about, can you shed some light on that?
That I cannot.
No, okay. All right,
Well,
yeah, Peter?
except to say that the scope of work for Ernst & Young says coordinate the input of a third-party technical engineering advisor. So I think it's appropriate to ask, you know, who is, what is, how is this third-party technical engineering advisor coming from, being found? Is that staff?
Right now, staff is doing technical reviews, just like Ernst & Young is doing their reviews. But there's been no other CAMs brought to the commission engaging any other firms to do this analysis.
Okay, yes, who's up?
We having one firm or a group of firms acting as one that's gonna make these comparisons of these four unsolicited proposals and how they're gonna compare a full-fledged from a design and building and you run.
Right. They're looking at the financial numbers because they're all giving us separate proposals and trying to equate them to a common perspective.
My question, do we have one group doing that or do we have several groups?
Ernst & Young is the firm that was hired to do that.
Yes, certainly.
I guess my concern is that you have a financial company and they're looking at the numbers, which is good, but when it comes to looking at the type of treatment processes and the equipment to achieve that finished water from a treatment plant, they are not. Unless they've got a sub-engineering firm that specializes in water treatment plants.
Well, they're only getting $60,000, so they're not doing it.
But I mean, you can say, okay, this is $30 million, and you're looking at $60 million on another engineering processing, but it may not, it's more than just looking at 30 million and 60 million. It's what the results are from the treatment finished process and the degree of that, and also from the utilities consumers are looking at getting good, high quality water at the most reasonable price for that thing. I think I wrote an article on that.
Yes, you probably did, Ralph.
You did.
Yes.
But
Okay.
that's my concern.
So
I mean, if they have a company that's in, you know, an engineering firm that's in the treatment plant, processes and equipment, then I'd have a little bit more warm and fuzzy feeling for this analysis.
So my full disclosure, years ago, I worked for Ernst & Young, but there's the tax and audit side, and then there's the management consulting side. And I was part of the management consulting side. I would guess that this
Including
piece,
engineers and all that stuff?
yes, that this comes from that, but I don't know. Do we know, Alan?
I honestly, I don't know which part of Ernst & Young they are from. I just know they're from Ernst & Young.
Yeah.
And they are looking at the
Actually,
financial part of this.
I can answer that question. Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors LLC. Apparently Ernst
That
& Young
doesn't sound
has-
like the tax and audit
No.
side.
Apparently Ernst & Young has now got a little subdivision
massive.
here.
It's a
It's
individual.
huge.
Right. So I'm sure that they have experience in this. I mean, I know that.
It's a
Maybe-
top-notch.
But I don't know that they have, because they definitely specifically distance themselves from this technical advisor. Distance is the wrong. They talk about there having to be a technical advisor. And I just don't know what it means in terms.
The city has personnel who have expertise to evaluate these proposals and are looking at them from a technical perspective. And I won't go into any details as to that analysis, but I will say we have the right expertise to compare each of the proposals and say that they meet the city's needs and expectations to go into a project and building plan. It will
Okay.
meet our water quality standards.
That's That's what I was,
Okay, so it will be the city who will make the decision. City staff will be making the decision, this is important. It will be the city staff who is making the decision as to the the design of not only of the building, but the design of the
I
system
think they make a
That's it.
They
recommendation
will
to the
make a
commission to
recommendation.
make.
to the commission,
To the commission.
saying we like one or three or two doesn't meet our expectations. So it will be a city
Yes.
process, okay.
and I understand too, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I heard that the commission would have more information forthcoming in the middle of January, is what
I think that's the timeline.
Yeah. that's what I heard.
Middle of January. Is that the time period when the cloak of secrecy,
When it
Goes away?
goes to a public meeting, that's when the veil of secrecy is done. It will be in a public forum where they will have the discussion as to the next steps.
well, we did Lockhart, for instance. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Let's step back. Details. About if the city has the requisite technical competence, which I believe, hired you, right, got the right guys. There seems to be a lot of question about why was it not then a solicited bid, as opposed to just leaking some word out there, or however it got out there, to receive unsolicited bids and then start working on it. Because it's the cognitive difference between the two, to me, is important. A solicited bid means I'm going out, I'm gonna ask you to build me something, here's what I want. Here's what I want. An unsolicited bid is, you're coming to me and saying, hey, here's what you need. Two completely different circumstances. So I see the need for Ernst & Young to say, okay, you're gonna get 4 different unsolicited composites of what they think we need, so we need somebody to filter through all that and tell us which one is the best one for its money.
And also, the commission, when they make the decision, they will decide to accept one or none of the proposals.
Right.
At which time we could go into a solicitation process.
It seems to be
It's
body
sets
part
it back,
backwards, but
sets it back about a year and a half.
For speed.
Sorry, what was that, John?
I think it's done, one of the reasons to do it that way is for speed, because the process is much longer on a solicited bid. And as I
you
understand
just
it,
gotta know what you want.
it's also when you have to write a solicited bid and it's very specific, you lose the ability to get input from others as to other approaches. As I understand, and again, I'm not the be all and end all, but that's what I understand is one of the reasons for that process.
Well-
You answered my question adequately, I just think it's
Well, the
backwards.
city can't control whether somebody gives them an unsolicited proposal.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like say, oh, please don't do that, but they could have said, no, thank you. They could have said, no, we don't wanna go down this road, we wanna do our own, but they did not take that route. So here we are. Yes, Peter.
So here's my concern
Thank you.
about this process. And taking us back to when we passed that resolution that went to the commission 2 years ago, the important part to me reads, provided that the city does not give up ownership of the water quality or rate structure. Now, it's a little concerning, we seem to have, this may be too dramatic, but it's a runaway train in that we have 4 proposals now, and the 4 proposals are going to see the light of day. And that those principles that we enumerated there may or may not be incorporated into those proposals. And we kind of know the direction somehow we've come to the conclusion that we somewhat know which direction the commission is heading. And incidentally, the Reese proposal has now formally been rejected, spending that huge amount of money at Vivash. Remember the Reese tested the water
Yes,
and
we
different
talked
process,
about
it was
that. They rejected it.
171 million.
We
So that has
rejected
now
that
been
last month.
formally reported to the commission. So that is
When did
obviously
that
not.
formally get reported to?
Well, it was in one of these memos that was submitted after our November meeting. It didn't go on a commission agenda, but it's one of these memos that the manager sends to brief the commission. That is now,
Yeah, go on.
the Reese is an end as far as the work that they have done. So-
The pilot study is at an end.
Yes, as I understand it.
Is that correct?
No.
Thank you. I'm sorry I screwed this up.
It's all right.
3 minutes, okay? Okay, so here we are, and I agree with you 100% that we really can't evaluate whether or not any one of those proposals meets our recommendations or even incorporates our
Principles,
recommendations,
they're principles.
our principles, until we see them. So at this point, all we can do is we can educate ourselves about the process, okay? Keep on top of it. And when that becomes public record, then us or whoever's next can jump in and say, okay, well, this is what we wanted to do. Are we losing control of the water? And I don't know. And are these, I can't ask you anything about the proposals. I mean, okay, what we can do is provide, they're going to design it, they're gonna build it, they're gonna maintain it, and they're gonna operate it, which means they're gonna pay the salaries, they're gonna pay the capital costs of fixing it up and maintaining it, they're gonna go out and get the equity to build it, and they're actually gonna design it. Do the proposals then say, and here's what it's gonna cost you for the water?
Marilyn, why don't we
I don't know.
consider making a list of these kinds of questions and then have them ready so that when the proposals come forward and they can be looked at, we know what to ask already. I mean, maybe you should solicit questions from the group or something like that, so we can just be ready for it, because there's nothing gonna happen today, right?
No,
Right,
no,
so,
when we did Lockhart, they had 2 proposals. And the way they did Lockhart was at a conference meeting, they had the 2 proposers present the proposals, okay? So it's probably be 2 conference meetings, okay? But the downside of that was that nobody got to see the proposals before they ended up on the conference committee agenda, okay? So the commission was looking at these, they were making presentations and they had boards and they voted that day on which one they wanted. And nobody else had an opportunity to go over them. So I hope that will not be the case, that when these proposals see the light of day, perhaps we can have them come and talk to us.
so what's the process then? Would we ask that happen prior to a commission meeting where they're presented, or is it happen at the commission meeting where everything is shown for the first time? What's the process?
It's really more a procurement question than Nancy, but I believe that they must be kept in the shade until it goes to that commission meeting, and that's the time that they get to the public.
And we anticipate there could be a vote that very evening.
They did it on Lockhart.
But I don't know that the commission specifically asked us to evaluate full P3s. They asked us to evaluate the process, correct?
No, not really, because specifically Commissioner Moritas said, I want you, the Infrastructure Task Force, to give me some guidance on the financials and whether or not it's a good deal for the city. So I don't think that they just.
I think we need to send a memo to the commission asking us at what point they want us to get involved and what information will be provided.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes, Peter.
Perhaps we could start that with a reiteration of the resolution that we passed 2 years ago. It still
Right.
seems to me to be valid. We'll start with that and then ask, what is happening in this process and what is our role in it?
And at what point will we get to see the proposals so that we can,
Are our
opine on it?
recommendations being followed by the commission?
Well,
No,
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we cannot get into specifics, but that is, that's the only question we
so
can.
what I'm thinking in terms of process is, if nobody can see these things until they hit a commission meeting, okay? The commission does not have to vote on the proposals when they first see them, right? They don't have to vote on them. They could say no to all of them.
That's the nub of the argument.
Right.
There's gotta be some spacing between.
Spacing between-
Seeing it for the first time and getting commentary.
So that, then looking at what Peter just said, we might wanna communicate to them that as after the period of time is closed and the proposals are public knowledge, we would like the opportunity to review them for consistency with our recommendations prior to taking a vote on them.
And I think it's,
So can I make that motion then? I think you put it,
let me say one thing if I may. And it's imperative that the city public works and the expertise gets to see and review and determine if this is the proper treatment processes that's going to be resulting in
Well, we can incorporate that because quality of the water was one of our recommendations.
and that's-
So, if
so
I
that-
could-
that- that's something that we ought to be collectively looking at, because
And helping you.
public
those-
works
in that
wants to
regard.
get a good system.
Right.
They don't wanna have,
Oh, we all want
Yeah, we
clear,
all-
clean, clear water, right? Okay, so let me rephrase that, okay?
so is
We
it,
should-
can you put in, the chair can make a motion, correct?
Can a chair make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so I would like to make a motion that we send an additional communication to the commission saying that at our December whatever meeting, we again discussed not the P3, we again discussed the 5-ash water treatment plant. And we would request that the commission provide us an opportunity to comment on the unsolicited proposals when they're ready for public presentation so that they are and consistent with our previous recommendations. Something like
So
that?
I second
Awkward?
that.
Oh, he seconded that. Okay. Anybody have any discussion?
My possibly friendly amendment is that we start that motion by repeating what we had in this communication from
Just
2
put that in
years
the
ago.
front instead of the
Yes,
back.
put that
Okay.
in the front.
All right, okay.
sounds like a good plan.
Sounds like a plan. Anybody else? Can we get a vote? I
Yeah,
voted.
Carrie.
Do you wanna read that back for us so that we're? No,
I certainly didn't get it all. Send communication to the commission that we discussed the 5-ash water treatment plant again. We recommend the city commission provide us an opportunity to review the proposals to ensure they're consistent with our previous
recommendations,
recommendations.
which are heretofore attached or something like that.
Somebody's nodding.
Yes, he's nodding in the back. Okay. That's pretty,
Yeah,
and
fine.
not us, the infrastructure task force.
Yeah.
Advisory
The
committee.
infrastructure.
Okay, so has everybody's heard it? Can I have a vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
What?
Was that an aye or a nay?
An aye.
That was an aye. Okay, you didn't move, so it's an aye. So we can say it was unanimously adopted.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so I think we have
Get-
covered that item and the members of the general public who would like to speak, please come up.
That'll be me.
That would be you,
Boyd Corbin.
not Mr. Boyd, Boyd.
All right, I think it's safe to say that this committee does not support the P3 unless water quality and rate structure is controlled by the city. Much better way to phrase it. The utility director, by his own words, doesn't know anything about the $450,000 that's going to Ernest and Young. All right, so we can do that. Relax. Okay. There's a lot of confusion on the $170 million Reese proposal and the $430 Corolla proposal. The Corolla draft says, the draft report of the Corolla one says $1 to $2 million per year for carbon filtration. But then the final Corolla report says, well, it's actually going to be like 100 times more than that, $130 million. How can we trust this garbage report? Lyle Muntz, who wrote the report, got right up here and answered all the questions for this committee. Someone asked him, I think it was me actually, what was the bromide level in the water? And he says, in source water, he says, I don't know. But he still ruled out using ozone because there might be too much bromide in source water. All right, Lyle Muntz is currently under investigation by the Florida Board of Professional Engineers. Okay, we won't hear the results of that for several more weeks. Why not have Ed Talton, the guy that wrote the Reese report, the guy that wrote the 2017 $1 million comprehensive utility strategic master plan for Fort Lauderdale? Why not have him come up here and explain what this $170 million would get? It's $70 million for the good technology, ozone and carbon, and then another $100 to bring 5-ash up to speed. You guys don't know, well, does that mean it's going to be fixed for this year and we have to throw a bunch of money into it, or what? So these are good questions, and at least have him on the phone, somehow communicate to him, with him, so that you can communicate to the city commission. Let's see. I don't think that our utility workers can be trusted. I mean, Omar says he still supports the Corolla report, even though you need to read both versions. You need the draft version and the final version of the Corolla report and match that up with what Reese says. Okay? Are there any questions that anyone has about this stuff? Because I've spent a lot of time doing this. You just want to pipe up about storm drains. Anyone? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, the most recent memo from the city manager to the commission was not shared with this group and is therefore not on this agenda. But it would be worth finding the link to read what he sent, because basically he summarizes what is not able to be recommended from the Reese report. So my comment on what you just said is that things appear to have moved on.
Right. Yeah.
The reason for the distrust of the utility folks is because you think they're crooks, or because you think they don't know?
Oh, I think frankly, in my humble opinion, that they're crooks, and this is all a big con, as I've been saying in many of my city commission speeches. And we've got $430 million on the line, and a lot of these P3s, they get started, but then they don't go anywhere. And you gotta ask these questions. Maybe Ernest and Young might fill you in on how much down payment you gotta give them, like maybe $50 million or something. And then what if this thing is canceled, like many other P3s are? That could be an angle, but it's taken 3 years for this city commission to get to this point of not knowing anything of what's going to happen with our green water, which clearly is not healthy for us to drink. And we clearly have a way, spelled out by Reese, to hopefully stop putting ammonia in our drinking water, which creates a lot of bad things, not just for people, but for pipes and for bacteria and a lot of things like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right. New business. 2022 meeting calendar. Well, guys, we might not be making the calendar, so I mean, what were you concerned about? I mean, holidays and things like that? Yeah, well, let's not meet on holidays. Can we just make that the point? We won't meet on holidays. I mean, I don't know that we can give you much feedback on that until the new, which brings me to ask Alan Dodd, our Public Works Director. Have you heard anything about the progress on an ordinance to make a new committee?
It's written, it's still under review, I think December. It might not go until January,
Probably.
but it's already in there to extend it for another 3 years,
To extend
the committee.
the
No.
as is or new?
No, well, they have the choice to always, replace you at any time.
Right.
But it's not saying wipe it all out and going, it's just to extend the current committee.
So there will be a committee, it will be extended for 3 years, and then it's up to them, whoever they wanna put on. I mean, I could get fired tomorrow.
But I don't, there's nothing in there saying wipe it all out, it's, so you would be, continuing in your current position.
Okay,
I have a
yes.
question on that. Alan, there is a specification, or there's a requirement that, for example, Maryland and Roosevelt and I were on this committee from its inception in early 2017. And I think there's only so many years that a committee member can serve on a specific.
I think it's three 2-year terms, I think.
3 2-year terms.
Huh?
3 2-year terms.
Sorry.
Anyhow you get
That's
to,
not what I said.
however you get to 6.
6, right,
So you're
6 years.
So you're screwed, you got another 3 years, sorry, Ralph.
No, probably not.
Yeah, so-
We're probably reaching our time.
Yeah, so it's,
Our due
we got
date.
5 years in now, pretty much come February of 2022. So that pretty much will say 1 year or no more time.
When you change to an advisory committee, is that a different committee than?
No, it's the
Or it's
same
all
thing
same
for
thing.
advisory committees or boards. And it's appropriate. You shouldn't be doing this forever. This is not a job. Okay, but so it's up to them.
Yeah,
Okay, very good. Good to know. So maybe we should, since there is going to be a committee, maybe we should opine upon, the calendar. Other than let's not meet on holidays, how many holidays would there, 2? Can you tell us which ones they would be? Oh, here we go. Very good. All right, so starting March, the new date for July, we definitely are not meeting on July 4th. How about we take a break in July? The commission is gone in July.
Yeah, they're gone, yeah.
Why don't we just take a break in July?
I like that.
Yeah?
I like that. Most
Alright.
other committees, most other committees take that
Yeah,
break.
all right, so put on the new date canceled, and September 5, what's wrong with September 5?
Labor Day.
Oh, no. So we'll go one week later?
Yes.
1 week later,
So that'll be
5 and 7.
12.
12. Okay, so we can all take our Labor Day holidays as well. Thank you very much. Have we done that? Very good. All right. Do you want to opine for 3 minutes on our vacation schedule? Do you want to opine for 3 minutes? Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right, very good. Okay, next one is top infrastructure priorities with funding. This is our top 10. Omar, you wanted to speak a little on this?
Yeah, so what we did
Peter?
here, we actually,
Yeah, I'm handing the gavel to Peter.
but these are projects that are either on planning or bidding, they have not started construction. Some of them are close to construction, but we separated them by water and sewer, there is some stormwater projects, there is some bridges. There is concern on the projects, and we took a few from each group. So these are, let's say, we put 14 in there. These are the priority projects that we're concentrating right now at the time to go through procurement, to get bid it out, to start moving, and to, get going on the whole process. So I can go one by one if you like, or if you have any questions on them.
No, I think this is good, and clearly it's along the lines that we were thinking. But my question is, I was envisioning something that accompanying this would be, and really this is the question, how does this list relate, if at all, to the work that Hazen Sawyer has done in identifying, in the 3 categories, high risk, medium risk, and low risk sewers, particularly because they're very significant in terms of their consequences if they break. I was seeing this as a way that you could put in front of the Commission that these lengths are still high risk, and they're not funded or only partially funded. So I'm just not seeing a linkage, and maybe you think it's not appropriate
Can we see the rough
between
level?
this and the list.
So a few of these projects are part of the consent order, and they're high priority projects from Hayes and from that list that you're talking about. But this has other projects too, besides consent order projects.
What if we added a column and said explanation and kind of said why it's in that top 14?
We could say that, but these are funded projects that are ready to start, so they're big priority, we just gotta make them.
Let's
See,
Well, I think our question, I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you.
no, that's, we're on the same
So
line.
let's say you got this list and now there's something else out there that you don't have funding for yet, or there's a hitch and it's not on this list. I think what we're trying to find out is this the list of the 14 most important or the 14 that you guys are on right now? In other words, there may be something important that's not on the list because you don't have funding. That's the one we really want to know about because maybe we can help. Okay, or that there's a gap. So have we hit all the 14 most critical, or is it this is the 14 imminent?
These are the 14 priority, like you're saying, there is some that don't have funding that could be a priority too.
Could we rank those in there and put them there too if
They're not in this.
Right.
Unfunded or not.
These are
in
all
this.
funded projects that are,
Let's put the unfunded, if there's 3 or 4 unfunded too, I think we should put them in there.
I think you need to put in scope of the bigger CIP, because when you look at the water and sewer projects, we probably have 100 projects that are on the CIP list that are funded already. So when you
Okay.
start talking about the unfunded projects, it's a lower priority that is being put in the out years and not in fund yet, or it's an unexpected urgent need that we have to reprioritize ahead of everything else.
Those are the ones we want to know about.
And usually those happen very quickly when we
Sure.
realize, like for instance, right now we have a water valve that is
Spewing.
malfunctioning and we have to get fixed right away. So we're going to be reprioritizing funding into that project, but
Can I,
we
can I,
don't have a list
So
of-
you're saying then, if it's unfunded, of the hundreds that are unfunded, they're not gonna show up on this list, cause this is the highest priority things that are ready to get done and need to get done. That's what you're saying, Alan?
Yeah, yes, and if they become a higher priority, then what we do is we will do a budget amendment
Shuffle.
To figure out how to fund them.
and push them up to get on this list with the
Okay.
funding at the same time.
And I just had one more question. When we say funding, is that bonds or capital, or what is this?
it can be both, it can be, some of them are bond, some of them are just, CIP funded, so there is actual money on those projects right
Okay,
now to get.
Thank you for explaining.
Can I-
And there's about 6 different pots of money depending on the type of project.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
more than that we could use depending on the type of project and where it is in the system.
Can we see the rest of them?
Thank you, that helps me
so
understand.
We see
I
the
wanted to,
Can you scroll down a little?
I wanted
Like I
to,
said, I can go one by one if you like, or, I mean,
Well,
these
Peter
are-
has a question and then we'll go.
so I wanted to put it in the bigger context and take yourself back 12 years, or so 10 to 12 years. The city had a CIP then. As it turned out, we had well in excess of $1 billion of immediate needs. It is not clear to me the commission was ever explicitly told that. And we all know what happened. So the CIP was nowhere near adequate for replacing everything that needed to be replaced, which some staff certainly knew about. And because of that, we became a poster child for infrastructure throughout the country. And in fact, you could probably argue that the infrastructure task force was started because of that. So what I'm envisioning, we're trying to help you, I believe, which is we are arguing that you should have the opportunity to put in front of the commission, these are our immediate needs, and this is the money that we have, and we're short by 200 million. This was part of the direction that we were trying to go in talking about condition as associated with development. So if I'm the commission, I don't necessarily want to immediately know about funded projects. I'm assuming they're getting done. I want to know about high-risk infrastructure, which you have not yet found money for.
And part of the CIP outlines that, because if you look at the CIP, all the beyond years, it has those projects that need that money, and it'll show them out. Now, they're not ranked in priority like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you're saying, on the CIP. But they're showing that, and it shows how much money we need year next.
Yeah, but Omar, can I ask a question? Here's a line item, okay? This is project ABC, okay? It's got no money in year 1. It's got no money in year 2. It's got all the money in year 5, okay? And even all the money in year 5 might not be enough to do this project. But this project really needs to get done, okay? Those are the kinds of projects that I think we should be concerned about, because I'm not concerned about all the projects that we all have money for, because we're on it, okay? And all those projects that we have money for now, we spent some of it, there's some of it left, there's more money coming till we get to the end of the 5 years when it's finished. Well, we went through this exercise, okay, when we looked at the whole thing. Project X starts out at 0, it gets money, and in the end, it gets X number of dollars, and that's all the money you can reasonably expect that project will take. It's done, it's done. But what I think Peter's trying to get at is there are some projects that we know we need to do them, we just don't have enough money unless we steal money from someplace else.
The way we do this, and we actually have already started for next year's budget, is going in, looking at our current needs, all the projects we have funded and unfunded, saying what other projects do we need to have, and creating the CIP shell, which takes a couple months to come up with the scope on it and the cost, and they will get injected. So in next year's budget book, you'll see an additional 20 or 30 projects that will appear on that list in the unfunded category.
But
And
what if
depending on the
that,
urgency of it though, then what we do is we will also recommend reprioritizing, and some of those projects, just based on the urgency, may move from an unfunded category into an immediate, we need to fund this, and rearranging.
well, we'd
If it
like to
doesn't
help
wait till the
you
budget cycle,
move, we'd like to help you move those, or at least get it in front of the commission to move those priorities to a funded category. And, you know, I'm anticipating, hoping that within a very short period of time, a year or 2, this Hazen Sawyer type map where you have these red lines that are high risk sewers, it'll all be no worse than orange or yellow. And we're just trying to help you put in front of the commission what didn't happen 12 years ago, which was we needed one immediate 1.2 billion, and that was never really explicitly put in front of the commission. We're trying to help you present that. It's probably not as dire as that now because all this money has been spent. But, you know, I don't want that to ever happen again.
Ralph?
Yeah, and it looks like my concern is to continuing the intense repair replacement of the sanitary sewer gravity mains that are still allowing II into the system, which is, looks like you have it. I'm just seeing the sewer basins in here that are, that is very important because, let's see, who mentioned that last month? Someone from the public mentioned about the polyethylene, high-density polyethylene, 12-mile new force main that was put in. And yes, that is not hardened steel. It will disintegrate with sand going through it. So I know that the thinking is to use that 12-mile force main when you're going back to the existing force mains from the Lomar plant on up to repair, replace, line them. But that is still an active problem with that infiltrated sand. And I'd hate to see those millions of dollars get, destroy that, sand destroy that new HDPE that was put in there. And I hope that I guess the barometer is that the Lomar plant is the amount of extra flow coming in, like 20 or 30%. So when that percentage gets down, is a indication that there's reduced II going into the system. That's my concern. I hate to see all that money. Great job getting the 12-mile force main in there, new force main in there, but I'd hate to see it starting to get destroyed from the sand.
I would say if you look at our priorities and how we are trying to lay out the budget, the number one priority we have is things that have failed or are failing. You know, we have to fix those right away. Number two is consent order projects that are prioritized, A, because the state said we had to do it, and B, because they are very high risk. That's how they got on that list to begin with. And we have deadlines by the consent order that we have to comply with. The third one is to continue on those priorities of replacing force mains that we know are high risk, as you saw on that map, and continuing the I&I program. We did, I believe, $200 million worth of work over the last 3 years in I&I, and that number may be wrong, but we've done a lot on it, but it was only in certain basins, and there's a lot more that needs to get done, because you continue to have that, the sand and the I&I issues in the city. So that is part of what we're putting into the program, but it can't all be funded this year. So
Understood.
we prioritize those top ones, and then we're fitting in the I&I project. We also have to do water main projects. That we know we have some systems that are either low capacity or just breaking that we have to replace. And then as we're seeing development go, there's pump station, lift stations
There's a lot of things
that
that's
we
going on.
have to construct because there's development that's depending on it, and the current stations are about to exceed that capacity. So that it's a juggling act among all those to see what, you know, within the money that we get each year, which is, I believe, in the range of 25 to 30 million in capital for water and wastewater. What are the ones that we have to do, and what are the ones that we need to do? Knowing that we're always gonna have 50 or 60 projects hanging out there unfunded that are still important, just not as important as these other ones.
And
So
I
any-
share Peter's frustration. I mean, how do we explain that? I mean, you just said it very, very nicely, but when a commissioner looks at, and the public for sure, looks at the CIP, they don't see that. There must be a narrative, some way of in a narrative to explain that to people, you know, like, we only have $20 million this year, okay? We
So I-
definitely have to do this, we have to do that, but that doesn't mean that we're not planning on, and if we don't, if those things have to get done and we're only getting $20 million a year, now what do? Do we do another bond? Yes, we do. That's how we're gonna justify doing another bond. If you can't explain to people that all the money we've got coming in and all the work that we've done is not enough, we need more, then people have to understand and see, well, what is the more? What is the priority to get the more?
And
Trying to help you.
what I heard you say was there's still a mismatch between needs, important needs, and funding available. And we're trying to push you to make that explicit in front of the commission so that it is out in the public for all to see.
So I guess from the CIP, we can take those projects that are beyond 5 years that cannot be done, and we can list them all and say these are the amounts that we need for all these projects.
What I would love to hear is a more generalized discussion. You know,
Thank you, Peter.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
infrastructure for idiots. Okay? This is what we've done for the last 3 years. We replaced the 54. We did a massive amount of work in the Victoria Park Basin. It's all new basically now. Here are the basins that are not, that we're gonna focus on the next 2 or 3 years. How many basins do we have really that we need to deal with? You know, where are we with the wastewater plants? I would personally love to, I mean, to wade through this much information is very difficult.
Very difficult.
My hat's off to Peter and Ralph for doing it in Maryland, because personally, I can't absorb 250 pages.
It's hard.
so usually what we do.
But I would love if you guys could do that for us.
Usually
I
what we
would
do, like
appreciate
every
it.
quarter or so, we put a report of all the projects that we completed. But we do it by quarters. We used to do it monthly, now we do it by quarter. So people can read, but if you haven't read the last 10, then you don't know what.
And
But I think what you're asking for is kind of lay out the
Big
strategic
picture.
vision where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And some of the projects don't fit neatly into that.
no, because you have
again,
emergencies.
If you
we
have
get it.
emergencies, but in general, we are trying to execute a strategy, and
Exactly.
you're trying to get us to explain what that strategy
And
is.
a
There you
strategy
go.
update, that's what I would
A
love to
strategy
do, is
update
get a
and
strategy
then an analysis of how we're meeting that strategy.
Progress update.
A progress
Yeah, but a
update.
you know, in other words, like I said, I live in Victoria Park, so I've seen what you guys did. Hats off to you. It's a hell of a lot of work. And it's a new system, basically.
Right.
How many more of those do we have to do? And where are they? That's what I would love to know. I know.
And how much are they gonna cost?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost secondary. We know we're gonna find the money.
Well,
But it's really
well,
what.
we have to explain that to people, that the reason we need to do another bond is because we have a strategic plan, but we don't have enough money to
Right.
implement the
And if I have
strategic
to
plan.
sit with three people that are citizens of Fort Lauderdale, I can't, even sitting on this committee as much as I have, I cannot eloquently say, hey, we've done this much and we've got this much to do.
Right.
I know there's lists of projects, but I cannot in a, 200-word statement, paint the picture of where we are.
Do the quarterly updates get posted on the city website where you could find them easily?
Yeah. Let me,
But we can say to you, based on, over the past 3 years since we started with consent orders, how much work we have completed. 5% of water mains, so much percent of high-risk force mains. We can lay out where we are.
That's important.
And
for that
then
information
show
to get
you
out.
what our upcoming program is for the next 2 to 3 years, knowing that we're always gonna have more up
Right, and because people wanna, people are always happy to hear about progress. And unfortunately, they usually hear about problems. And you guys have done some amazing stuff. I mean, getting that main put in, the length of the city, that was a hell of a thing to do. And like I said, I know Victoria Park, but you're doing other basins as well. And a big picture would really be helpful. We all are participating in our community, we talk to people constantly. And I'd love to hear that.
I think it gives us about two, maybe 3 months to really put that together, only before the holidays. And then we can come back and give you a presentation status of the infrastructure.
Don't you think that would be helpful?
that'll be wonderful, wonderful. Could I just between us, if I were to ask you, Alan, what is your highest priority right now? What, if you had your druthers,
Dealing with the infrastructure task force.
would it be I&I? I mean, we have a lot of I&I work left to do, and we only have $20 million a year.
So I have to put in bins. I would say actually it's not projects, it's people. Getting qualified staff filling the seats to improve our capacity to deliver on projects.
Oh, well, you see, we haven't even talked
But-
about that.
But when you ask about the infrastructure priorities, and I'll just stick within the water and the sewer piece.
Yeah.
Okay, it is complying with the consent order, okay? Improving for the short term, cutting down on the high risk force mains that we know are out there.
Okay,
Okay, because those are the next bomb ready to go off if we don't deal with them. Long term, it is I&I. The potential for the city to keep growing is dependent on staying below the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. And we're so close. The only way that we can reduce that is by cutting down on I&I. So that long-term strategic, that is what we need to prioritize. But we can't do that as long as we're dealing with high-risk force mains or water mains that keep breaking. So we have to build reliability in the current system in the short term so that we can focus on the long-term needs.
you know, if we just
It's excellent.
take that
Yeah.
little thing right there, okay? That's perfect.
Yeah.
That was just perfect. That's the first time I've heard it expressed that way. And I didn't know about the high risk, force mains. I know about the high risk force mains, but I didn't know that was even more
Focus.
critical than the I&I. Because that is a problem that if they blow, we're in
You
trouble.
don't want any more tomato plants in real estate.
Right. And I think your analysis, I actually explained this to somebody the other day when we were talking about 500-foot tall towers at Pier 66. And they said, well, where's all the poo gonna go? And I said, well, you have a sewage treatment plant and here's the line, it goes up, it goes down, and we're pushing it, but it goes up, it goes down. And people can understand that, and you just explained it beautifully, that if we don't get the I&I under control, we're gonna bump up
What's the
against.
percentage? It's like 25% or something like that of what goes through those plants is.
On a heavy rain day, it could be as much as 50% when you have extremely heavy rains.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's very measurable. You have sensors in every one of the sewage lift stations, and you can see the flows increasing, you can measure it at the plants.
You know, if there was a way to, with the sand, which is really the culprit, to be able to intercept that sand in the system, in the collection gravity like a wet well, and pump out that sand so it cannot be pumped and go through the force mains to destroy, the force
The other
mains.
problem, Ralph, is you're paying money to treat stormwater.
That's right,
Yeah.
That's massive amounts of money.
massive amount,
Yeah.
electricity, everything. Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things, you look at the cost to do that versus replacement of the force mains and even the new ones that come in. So it's a thought. I mean, that's all I'm throwing out on the table.
Excellent. Okay, well, good. So, top this is we're gonna be working on this. This is not something, we're gonna be working on this. So, does anybody have anything to add to the, item on top infrastructure priorities? Any member of the public wanna speak on this type of topic? Yes.
Wilton Manors recently did a study about a year or two ago, and it showed that there's 3 times as much sewage going to the sewage plant when it rains a lot. It's way more than 50%. We missed a really good opportunity to use ceramic epoxy coated iron pipe as a force main. Instead, we use plastic. This means that I&I is much more important to deal with. Also, you guys are forgetting about the 60-foot deep down that the plastic pipe goes under a bridge. Sand collects down there. I mean, we're basically set up for failure, but not this year. In a couple of years, it's just going to be bad. I'm not going to rely on a rumor of a memo to just dismiss what Reese was saying. Look at it this way. You've got a $430 million proposal, which it seems we're like going full steam ahead on. But don't forget, it's $50 million a year in electricity to have this membrane technology working, okay? If we go with the Reese proposal, it would only be $170 million to build the plant, and only about $6 million a year to do the filtration. I know it's another $22 million to run 5-ash, but these are huge savings, not just up front, but in the future. Okay, so the city doesn't have that much money, so we want to go with the $430 million plan because it's free, right? In the end, it's the taxpayers that are paying this. So I like your idea of a bond, because if we're going to save $260 million by fixing 5-ash and save another $45 or so million a year running 5-ash, then it would make sense to do a $170 million bond. And I think you guys should strongly suggest to the city commission that's what we need. Also, don't forget that carbon is much better with chemicals like PFAS, which is from firefighting foam and things like that, and other bad chemicals. Membrane technology, no, it doesn't deal with chemicals. It deals with color and things like that. Larger stuff that it filters out of the water, and it wastes 15% of the water that we use with a deep well injection. That's terrible right there. I mean, we only have so much water that we can keep taking, and it's just a terrible long-term strategy to do that. By the way, a few months ago, we do have a backup plan in case the P3 thing doesn't work. The city hired Hazen and Sawyer as a little, I don't know, like a shopping helper for getting a new water treatment plant. So I think we really need to understand that is an option. And Hazen and Sawyer, they're pretty good. Corolla, they've been sued by the federal government for screwing up things like this. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I have a question about that. What was my question? It was fleeting. Oh, the pipe. Harbordale, that pipe ran right through my neighborhood. And he is absolutely correct. It dips 60 feet to get under 17th Street. It does collect sand down there. How do we deal with that?
The curvature of the pipe, if you're looking at a curvature on
Long.
3,000 feet,
Yeah.
you can see you have the open pits here, right? Where
Yeah.
you're gonna make your other connection.
I know.
So when you look at the curvature, it's not like it looks like that. You know,
It's very gradual.
very gradual, and it goes up. it's not a 90 degrees.
No, I appreciate that. So you're saying the pumps are adequate to push that stuff through? Thank you, appreciate that. I was worried about that.
I'm still worried about that. Even though it's a long slope, flat slope, the sand's still trying to get that up. It's,
Well, let's
you know,
hope.
you don't know, I
Have
guess.
you seen how thick those pipes are?
Yeah,
No,
I watched them go in.
They're 4 inches, 6 inches thick.
but the weight, you know, it's the,
Alright, well, we're not gonna resolve this issue
no,
here.
you gotta
Okay,
put a,
we're not gonna do that here. Okay, preparing for the February sixth meeting, that's the next item on the agenda. Actually, now that we have heard from Alan that there's gonna be a smooth transition, I don't know that we need to do anything special for the February sixth meeting. Agreed? Okay. And the other things are monitoring stuff, like the water and sewer breaks report for 2021. Can I suggest that we not go over it today, that you get an opportunity to do a 2021 in January, you know? Because let's do a whole year, let's see the whole year at big picture in the whole year. Real, because there's no point in going over it for December because the year is ending and we'll get the whole picture for water main breaks
It's
and
pretty good
sewer breaks.
news.
It's good news. And I know that can we actually put some of this information graphically on the maps? I mean, we have it all here, but I believe we do have maps.
Right.
There you go, that's where they are, that's where all the things are. So it would be good really in January, if it's possible in January, this may take until February, to get a 2021 review of water and sewer main breaks. Can we do that?
Do a review, somebody give a presentation.
No, I mean, let's see it all together. You can do it right here.
Right.
But see a whole year.
Okay, sure.
Yeah?
Can do that.
Okay. If everybody agree with that, then we see the whole picture for the year and we know where we stand.
I think that might be the, I mean.
Can't be the whole year.
Not December, but I cannot read it on that. So this one covers from January to November, so we'll do that.
Right, so let's do the whole year, so there's no point in going over the November one if we're gonna go over the December. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is our agenda for today.
I have a
Yes,
question
certainly.
before we adjourn. This is a technical question. I'm gonna ask Omar Allenton.
Yeah.
What is typical life expectancy for a water treatment plant? Are they built to go on forever, or
No.
are they?
No.
They have a life expectancy, correct?
The life expectancy of the water treatment plant is about 30 years.
30 years,
And
That's
the
all?
reason for that is
Jesus.
besides new technologies that
right?
can be more efficient
Right.
and you can, have better financial, lower cost of water and all that. That's one part. But the other part, things change all the time. Infrastructure change. There is probably new windows that can come out 10 years from now that will never break in a hurricane. I mean, all those kind of things are improvements. So, 30 years is the typical. And when they do most of these big trees, it's like 30 years. That's kind of the maximum. Sometimes they even go 40 years, depending on the type of plant, but 30 years is the
That's
normal.
before you renovate it, not before you replace it.
And when
Yes.
we consider or think about incorporating new technology like this nanofiltration, which my understanding is fairly new or newer than what's going on at 5-Ash. We incorporate or start using it, it's proven technology, right? It's not something that's just come off the drawing board.
Nanofiltration has been used for about 20, 30 years already.
Oh, really?
It has
Okay.
been developing over time. Peel Dixie, I believe, is about 12 years old. That's what we have there. And it works very well in this type of water. The quality of the water is made for those membranes.
So when a public comment talks about nanofiltration not doing something, can that be supported or refuted or
It
what?
can be supported. I've done a lot of different water plants over time, and there is a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of paper where it shows what particles are removed on nanofiltration. Actually, one of the disadvantages of nanofiltration is that you remove so much
You have to put it back.
that you gotta put it back. So the water is so soft and strip out of everything that you gotta either do ionic exchange, like Carolo suggested after the nanofiltration plant, or you can do remineralization, which you add all the minerals back into the water in the post.
You also have a deep well injection to get rid of the deleterious.
You do, and there is other options for that. You can use that water for irrigation, you can use it for other things. So it's not really all a waste if you have a plan to reuse that water.
Okay.
Thank you, you're helping me get educated, I appreciate that.
And RO is different. RO is for desalination, and that's a different process. A lot of people confuse RO, reverse osmosis, with nanofiltration. They're completely different. Nanofiltration is a ultrafiltration process where the particles actually go through a membrane, and the opening of those holes are about 0.001 microns, which is extremely small. And RO is a reverse osmosis change where you actually reverse the osmosis process, so it's a separation process, it's not a filtration process. And that's used at very high pressure, so people confuse a lot nanofiltration with RO processes.
So you say nanofiltration has been around for 20, 30 years. Is there anything newer and better and hotter?
Yeah, the membranes keep improving.
But of the same process?
The same process,
Okay.
but there is something called fouling, which means that the membranes get stuck with stuff pretty often. The new type of membranes reject that, so you have to clean them less. So there is a lot of advances in technology through the same membrane process. So that evolves over the year. Then you can create they have other materials that you can run the process with less pressure, so you save energy. So all that is being a continuous improvement over time.
So it isn't the same nanotechnology of 30 years ago, it's an improved nanotechnology. So it is, I was gonna say that, but I figured no. I wasn't quick enough. So these 4 proposals, not to talk about substance, could potentially, each of the 4 of them could come in with the same process?
They could.
Or they could come in with different processes. That's interesting, we should that, okay.
You might get the same result at the end, and for different technologies.
But then the technical people, who are you all,
Right.
will be recommending to the commission what you all think is the best technology.
Very good.
Yes.
Has been some thought, I think I threw this out some time ago, is there any thought as far as interconnecting the well fields, ones that are down just west of the field Dixie, and then of course at Prospect, to give more versatility to, for an example, not that anybody's gonna drill a hole in a 42-inch raw water main. Oh, wait a minute, they've already done that.
That happened.
To be able to, with the ability to valve off and bring up water from the other well system to the south, to keep the water going.
Peel Dixie plant?
Beg pardon?
You mean to the Peel Dixie plant?
Yes, in other words, before you had some wells near the airport or up around, but just to give, I mean, I'm always a pessimist on the Prospect well field, in the sense that if there's a plane that doesn't make it through the, on the, was it 927 east-west.
We haven't had any discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at the potential problems that could occur and shut down a lot of those wells or contamination. To get a little versatility and another source for the raw water.
That is a good idea, even though we have a limit on each well field or how much we can draw. Right,
So is the plan or is the study that is being done now to look at the wells and the quality of the wells and the condition of the wells, when do we anticipate that's gonna be finished?
It has 3 phases.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
We went through the first phase, now procurement changed the procurement rules, and we couldn't use the same consultant, so we had to go through the whole process again, and we're in the process again to get them qualified, and that's been done.
Okay,
So it's probably gonna be another 6 to 8 months to have
Oh,
that
that's
completed.
terrible. It'd be really good to have
I
that
know,
done,
and but that's a procurement issue.
Yeah.
And
so we know.
so just to, I know this is earlier that you made a comment about that pipe that is plastic. Think about putting a metal pipe in the ground and all the digging that we have to go through in the city to put that pipe.
It was worth it.
7.5
Yeah.
miles of open cut of that pipe.
And the polyethylene is inert material, it doesn't rust like your steel.
It does
pipe,
not
you
rust.
know.
I
So
see.
there's-
Plastic was the right way to go.
There's benefits, but, and I'm thinking, you know, that was a good idea, I'm concerned about the sand getting in there and draining.
That pipe is this thick, and I'm telling you, the way it was designed, it'll be there 100 years from
Okay,
now.
I'm a warrior.
Yes. All right,
Just so people can think
Yeah.
that open cut will be a very
But the
different.
so gentlemen,
Absolutely.
thank you all very much for all coming. I wish you all a very, very happy holiday, whatever holiday, happy New Year's, and I'll see you next year. Okay.
Go adjourn.
Adjourned.
What were you asking?
So this is the memo.